Meanwhile, in China,
there's a specific mushroom
making people hallucinate.
Tiny human-like figures.
Everyone sees little tiny people.
You might see little people.
Don't you want to see the little people?
This person, Domnauer.
My name is Colin Domnauer, and I'm the researcher who discovered this new type of hallucinogenic mushroom that makes you see little people. And what I've uncovered over the past 4 years has blown up across the internet, making the headlines of the BBC, reaching the front page of Reddit, and going viral across social media. This mushroom sounded so crazy that other scientists dismissed it as nothing more than just folklore, but my research confirms this is very much real. And these hallucinations aren't just swirling shapes and colors. These are highly detailed, realistic visions of little people, literally inhabiting and interacting with the world all around you. But the more I looked into it, the more mysterious it became. Nobody knew what was causing this, and even stranger, nobody was even bothering to study it. So I did an entire PhD to solve this mystery. This all starts with just a few sentences buried in an old, obscure paper written nearly a century ago. In 1936, a missionary living amongst the Kuma people in the highlands of Papua New Guinea recorded something curious in his diary.
The wild mushroom called Nonda makes the user temporarily insane. He flies into a fit of frenzy. Death is even known to have resulted from its use. It is used before going out to kill another native, or in times of great excitement, anger, or sorrow.
The most notable symptom of all this was that the locals reported seeing little beings all around them, and the scientists later dubbed this phenomenon mushroom madness. But here's the real exciting part that got my attention. According to the natives in Papua New Guinea, the type of mushroom that caused these hallucinations wasn't closely related to any known psychedelic mushroom. It wasn't a psilocybin or magic mushroom as they're more commonly known. Instead, it was a type of bolete mushroom, which is a family of popular culinary mushrooms that, as far as anyone knew, weren't capable of producing any effects like this. The reports were so intriguing that by the 1960s, it had attracted some of the biggest names in psychedelic science, including Gordon Wasson and Albert Hofmann, the chemists who discovered LSD and psilocybin. But after all their research, they couldn't find any psychoactive chemicals in any of these mushrooms from Papua New Guinea. Because of this, they concluded that the whole phenomenon of mushroom madness was nothing more than an exaggerated cultural myth, drama, or folklore. They wrote, "The whole pattern of mushroom madness seems to offer an unparalleled opportunity for social catharsis, and the mushrooms, or at least most of them, don't seem to have any physiological effects leading to madness." Amazingly, over the last 60 years since then, no one even bothered to investigate further. But I just wasn't convinced the story ended there. And what's even better, I knew something that these scientists didn't. Decades later, starting in the 1990s, remarkably similar reports began to emerge from southwest China. Yunnan province is famous among mushroom foragers. It's known as the kingdom of wild fungi, with more than 900 edible species of mushrooms, more than anywhere else on Earth. Some are sold for hundreds of dollars. Some are deadly poisonous, but one had a reputation unlike anything I'd ever encountered. Every summer during the rainy season, thousands of locals in Yunnan head into the forest searching for a local mushroom called jianqiuqing, which is a prized edible species. But every year, hundreds unintentionally end up in the hospital suffering from strange side effects. Because if this mushroom isn't fully cooked, it changes from edible to hallucinogenic. Locals said that after eating this mushroom, they would see things like little people dancing on tablecloths, crawling up chairs, jumping into their bowls of soup. These sounded like remarkably similar reports from Papua New Guinea, only this time from a completely different culture. What makes this unique is that people consistently reported seeing three-dimensional, highly detailed, miniature, human, animal, or fantasy-like figures all around them. These little people are said to be a few centimeters to a foot tall, and they're often reported in great numbers, often dozens or hundreds or even thousands at a time. They're also said to be colorfully dressed, wearing clown or fantasy-like clothing. They're highly mobile, running, jumping, marching in rows. They're also sometimes said to be teasing, harassing, or playfully amusing the person seeing them. They're said to have a mischievous nature. And as if all that wasn't enough, here's the craziest part. They interact with the real environment around them, obeying the laws of gravity and physics, crawling under doorways, falling off the sides of tables, or clinging to physical objects in the real world. I know this sounds like a fairy tale, but psychiatrists have a real name for this phenomenon: Lilliputian Hallucinations, a clinically rare projected hallucination that to this day, neurologists still have no idea how it works. Humans have had Lilliputian hallucinations throughout history. Nearly every culture on Earth has their own stories and beliefs about little people, but those experiences all arise from a vast variety of different sources, such as alcohol withdrawal, dementia, neurological disorders. There was nothing known to reliably produce Lilliputian hallucinations. That's what makes this mushroom unique, because according to one hospital report in Yunnan, 96% of people affected by this mushroom say they see little people. And not just for a few hours, by the way. People are having these these hallucinations for days or even weeks long. What really got my attention was that the mushroom causing these hallucinations in China was also said to be a bolete mushroom, which, if you remember, was the same type of mushroom causing the madness in Papua New Guinea decades earlier. Two cultures were independently reporting the same bizarre, specific type of hallucination and attributing it to the same type of mushroom, a mushroom which scientists didn't even believe was hallucinogenic. This was more than coincidence. This was a pattern, but apparently no one had connected the dots that pointed to a real discovery waiting to be made. When I first began my research, scientists didn't know which exact species of bolete mushroom caused these hallucinations. So my first order of business was to travel to China to answer this for myself. When I first arrived in Yunnan, it was immediately clear that these psychoactive boletes were not some obscure knowledge. They were everywhere, and they were famous. On my first day in the city, within minutes, I found people selling baskets full of the mushrooms that I had come all this way to investigate. That's when I realized the locals had more to tell me about this mushroom than any scientist could, because they knew all about these hallucinations, and most even had a funny, personal story they were eager to share. These mushrooms were always consumed intentionally, but not for the reasons that you might think. To the people of Yunnan, this mushroom isn't special for its psychoactive properties. In fact, they're always sure to fully cook it. They're special because of their highly superior flavor, second to none. They're so highly regarded as a food that they can sell for upwards of $150 per kilogram. I actually got to eat these mushrooms myself, and I could personally attest to their amazing flavor. They're some of the most delicious mushrooms I've ever had. I finally asked a local the one question that had really been bothering me. If everyone knew that this mushroom caused hallucinations, and that those hallucinations were seen as a sign of poisoning, why did so many people continue to eat them anyways? His answer was simple. Yes, they're poisonous, but they're delicious. He also told me that in their culture, sharing a delicious meal with friends and family was seen as a much more valuable and enriching experience than having an individual drug trip. I began purchasing samples of these mushrooms from vendors around the city who told me these were the mushrooms that make you see little people. I brought them back to my lab and started sequencing the DNA, and the analysis proved without a doubt the identity of the species responsible, because in every single case, the DNA pointed to one and one species only, Landmaua asiatica. This is a species that was actually being sold and consumed in China for decades before scientists even recognized it as something new. It's also a species of mycorrhizal mushroom, which means it must grow with certain trees in order to survive. And so for that reason, it can't be artificially cultivated. This is another reason why this mushroom is so highly valued. And then a year later, I heard of an indigenous group in the remote northern Philippine mountains. The locals there had a long tradition of collecting and eating wild mushrooms, but apparently there was one, which they called Sedesdem, that would make them see little people if it wasn't cooked properly. But here's the craziest part. Sedesdem was also a bolete mushroom. This was now the third culture that had independently discovered a bolete mushroom that caused the Lilliputian hallucinations. The problem was, its scientific identity remained unknown, so I had to go there myself to figure it out.
Oh shit, here we go again.
This was the most important part of my whole research, because what I ended up discovering was something extraordinary. It took me several days, but eventually I was able to find the mushroom that the locals said was the one to make you see little people. When I first found it, I couldn't tell if it was Landmaua asiatica or some other mushroom entirely, so I had to wait and sequence the DNA to be sure. At that time, Landmaua asiatica was only thought to occur in Yunnan, China, and nowhere else. But what I found was the most exciting and surprising discovery of this whole story, because the mushroom I found in the Philippines matched exactly the DNA of Landmaua asiatica from China. This was now 3 cultures independently reporting the same specific type of hallucination and attributing it to the same type of mushroom. And now in 2 of those cases, I had discovered the exact same species was responsible. At last, I now had the irrefutable evidence of a shared underlying physical mechanism to Lilliputian hallucinations. This was clearly more than cultural myth. On top of that, not only was this species a new record for the Philippines, but it vastly expanded the known range of Landmaua asiatica from a small part of southwest China to across Southeast Asia. Perhaps this mushroom is much more prevalent than we ever knew. But now, the next thing I had to uncover is what chemicals in the mushroom were causing these hallucinations. Now, at first glance, you might assume it contains psilocybin, the active ingredient in magic mushrooms, but the symptoms sounded completely different. And on top of that, bolete mushrooms and psilocybin mushrooms come from completely different branches of the fungal tree of life. In evolutionary terms, they're as divergent from each other as we humans are to a platypus. So surely this had to be something new. I made chemical extracts of this mushroom and screened them for traces of any known psychoactive drugs, but I found there was none. So the question remained, what was causing these hallucinations. I had to sequence the whole genome of this mushroom to dig deeper, searching for genes that could be making any known psychoactive drugs. And again, what I found, there was absolutely nothing. In other words, there was no genetic pathway to make any known psychoactive drugs. All of this, the symptoms, the species, everything, it's all different from any psychedelic we currently know of. We've now unlocked a new frontier. We're on the edge of discovering an unknown molecule that can make you consistently see little people. It's extremely exciting for science and for medical applications. It's a reminder that after centuries of scientific research, nature still holds amazing, mind-bending wonders hiding in plain sight. I'm still working to uncover as much of this as I can, so subscribe if you want to see more, or other videos about the mysteries of the fungal universe.